Hello my friends. If you have been following along, you know that Python is a powerful tool in the world of network automation and programmability. In my previous videos, I talked to you about various data types, variables, and operators. In that video, you saw how learning the Python language can be straightforward, especially if you have a specific use case in mind. What could be better than diving into the topic of network automation and programmability? In my previous video, I tried to provide you with a network-related examples for better understanding of each topic, so you could establish a better connection and comprehension. In this video and the continuation of this topic, I'll do the same, making the examples more practical and concrete as we progress. As I mentioned in the previous video, nearly all IT topics have a common foundation. Therefore, by understanding networks, you can easily learn programming and use it as a powerful tool to manage and develop your networks. With programming knowledge, you can also understand network-related concepts and efficiently produce better programs based on a proper understanding of your network requirements. With this explanation, let's move on to today's topic, where I want to introduce you to one of the fundamental aspects of Python, program control structures, which include conditionals and loops. In this video, I'll explain the if statement and its application in the world of networking. If you are as excited as I am, please stay with us. In Python, program control structures are like the directors of a Python script. They dictate how the script flows and runs. They empower you to make choices, set up loops, and structure codes to accomplish particular goals. This control structure encompasses conditionals like if, elif, and else, which let your script run different code sections depending on conditions. Moreover, loops such as for and while facilitate repetitive tasks, simplifying data processing and task automation. These control structures are the basic elements for creating effective and adaptable Python programs. Alright, now that you know what control structures in Python encompass, let's dive into getting familiar with if statements. If statements are like the brains behind your scripts. They're the decision makers that enable your code to adjust and react smartly to different situations. Whether you're automating network jobs or dealing with intricate IT problems, if statements are the go-to tools for controlling how your script behaves. My friends, to get a better grasp of the if statement, let me share a networking example with you. In the networking realm, you're probably familiar with the concept and utility of policy-based routing. For instance, in Cisco iOS routers, you can define the conditions under which a specific traffic should traverse a particular link using a route map. Essentially, with the attributes provided by the route map, you can specify how to handle a portion of the traffic, whether it should be routed or dropped, right? In the world of programming, the if statement works similarly, acting like a roadmap for you. In other words, in an if statement, you assess a condition, and if that condition is true, you instruct Python to perform a specific task or action in a particular way. It's that simple, see? You've used an if statement before. Interesting, isn't it? We're just here to explore the rules, syntax, and its application in Python, especially for network purposes. Let me dive deeper into the topic with a straightforward scenario. Just picture yourself as a network administrator in charge of overseeing the flow of data on a corporate network. This network accommodates two distinct categories of users, regular employees and guests. Your objective is to establish a network traffic management policy that grants priority to the data transmission of regular employees over that of guest users. And you are doing so based on the following criteria. 1. Regular employees. These individuals require swift access to server and crucial application. Their data traffic should be given precedence. 2. Guest users. These users have restricted access privilege and should not excessively consume network bandwidth. Alright, now let's write some code together that address the requirement of this scenario. Remember, it's always a good practice to add a clear command to your code. So if you or someone else come back to it, you can quickly understand why the code was written. In networking, this is akin to writing a description for an interface or an access list. Makes sense, right? So let's start with a comment like that. Python a script for network traffic management. Okay. Now, let's think about the structure of program we are going to write. The first thing we need to do is to determine the user type. Whether the user type is an employee or a guest, this is the first section. After identifying the user type, we need to decide what traffic policy should be applied to each user type. According to our scenario, employees and guests should have separate policies. This is the second section. And for the third section, using a conditional structure, we will make decisions about applying policies to each user type. Now, to write the first section, we need a piece of code that can identify and authenticate user based on their type. My friends, we call this piece of codes that do one or a few specific tasks functions. Yeah. But here's the catch. We haven't talked about functions yet. Don't worry. Let's assume that I've already written this function for you. Later on, I'll provide detailed explanation about functions. Alright, let's write it. To start, I'm defining a function that will determine the user type for us. It goes like this. Def get, for example, user underscore type, and my friend. In Python, when we define a function, we use keyword def, followed by the function's name and open and close parentheses. Finally, we end the function definition line with a colon, like that. Now, if I hit enter, you'll see that it automatically indents, creating a code block. As I mentioned, don't worry too much about the functions for now. I'll explain it later. Right now, focus on how to create a program or a code, and more importantly, on how to write and use conditional structure in Python. Now, let's assume that I have written the code related to the function already. For example, blah, 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 blah. For now, it doesn't matter. I don't want to write actual code for this function yet, so I'm using the keyword pass. This keyword acts as a placeholder, allowing me to write the code for it later. This is our first function. As you can guess, this function doesn't do anything because I haven't written any code for it. However, we assume that its code has been written previously, so that's the completion of the first part. Alright, now let's move on to the second part, which is writing functions to apply policies to employee and guest group. Here we can create a function for each of these policies. Then, using conditional structures, we will determine which of these policies, or in other words, functions, should be applied to each user type. It's quite simple. Just like the previous function, we create two more functions. First one named, let's say, prioritize traffic or prioritize underscore traffic, like this. Def prioritize underscore traffic, open and close parentheses, and followed by colon, and again, blah, 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 as its codes, and pass. And another function, for example, let's name it, how about limit bandwidth? So def limit underscore bandwidth, followed by a colon, and again, blah, blah, blah. Finally, I say pass. As you know, these functions don't actually do anything here because there is no code written for them yet. For now, I just intend to use these functions within a conditional structure to familiarize you with Python's conditional structures and to introduce you to a network scenario. In the next scenarios, after we become more acquainted with functions, we will write code for them. Now, we have three functions, as you can see here, each of which is expected to perform a specific task for us. So, the first and second parts are completed up to this point. Now let's move on to the third part, which is applying policies to each user type using conditional structures. And the first step, we call the get underscore user underscore type function to determine the user type. To use this function later in the code, I assign its result to a variable like that. Let's say user underscore type equals get underscore user underscore type. You should be familiar with variables. We discussed them in the previous video. Now, let's move on to the condition. What does our scenario require? It wants highest speed access to servers and application if the user type is an employee, right? Okay. To express this in Python, I use an if statement like this. If user type equals employees and followed by a colon. Placing a colon at the end of the condition creates a new code block. Pay attention to the indentation here. Remember? From here onward, whatever we write will be inside this code block until we remove the indentation. Now, I need to call the prioritize traffic function. So let's say prioritize traffic. Can you guess what's going to happen? Yes, that's right. If the user type is an employee, they will have high-speed access. But what should we do if the user type is a guest? Friends, in Python, for subsequent conditions, we use elif, which is short for else if. So, I exit the if block and type elif user underscore type equal guest Here again, after the colon, a new block is created. Essentially, we're checking another condition. Now, I need to call the limit bandwidth function. Which means if the user type is a guest, they will have a regular and limited access. Okay. One point to note. What if our user type is neither an employee nor a guest? What if it's anything other than these two? In that case, we need to make a general decision about any other user type. Here is where we use the else keyword. The else keyword controls anything that hasn't been addressed by the previous conditions. It will perform a general action on anything we want. See? I exit the elif block and say else. Again, after the colon, a new block is created for us. Now, I can declare the final condition or, in other words, what to do if the user type is something other than an employee or a guest. In this case, I have a simple request. I want Python to print unknown user. So I say print unknown user. One question. What happens if I run this code? Which condition will be executed? Well, it's clear. Since we haven't written any code for this function we defined, the first condition is executed without any output. And the same goes for the second condition. Finally, it reaches the else block and the output we will see is unknown user. Okay? Very well. Up to this point, I've shown you that Python's conditional structure generally includes if, elif, and else. But the story doesn't end here. Stay with us in the next video to delve deeper into Python's control structure. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and enable notifications. By doing so, you can make sure you won't miss our future videos. Liking and sharing this video will help it reach more people who are interested in these topics. Finally, I'd like to express my gratitude for your attention to this video.